Let's also talk about issues back home and a report from the charity Citizens Advice that some 2 million people could see their energy cut off this winter. They simply don't have the money to put money into the key for their smart meter, and they simply will have to, turn off the electricity and turn off the heating. We live in a first world country. I find that totally unacceptable. Look, I think it's unacceptable that people who can pay their bill don't pay their bill. And if someone's got a packet of fags in their hand or a can of cider and then they're saying, I can't afford to heat my home for my kids, I have some questions to ask them about their priorities. But the idea that more than 2 million people will have their gas electricity cut off in wintertime because they can't afford this. 1.7 million people were disconnected at least once a month last year. And some 800,000 people went for more than 24 hours without gas and electricity because they couldn't afford to top up. Meanwhile, 5 million people live in households that they're in debt to their energy supplier. 1 in 4 people say they can't afford their essential bills. 1 in 10 households have had to borrow money in the past 6 months to cover necessities like their energy bill. We are in a cost of living crisis, but this is basic stuff. This is not being able to go on holiday or buy this uniform for your kids. This is being able to live in the 21st century.
And it should shame us, I think, the fact that this has gotten so out of hand, because whilst we might talk about people's individual circumstances and the choices that they might make, the underlying issue here is the price of energy, which, yes, we're in a very unstable geopolitical time where we're very subject to the effects of things like the war in Ukraine, the conflict in the Middle East and so on, but also underpinning it, of course, is the fact that we've pursued, along with many other Western countries, a pretty demented energy policy for a long time, which has made energy more expensive. Politicians on high have decided that's a price that they're willing to pay.
Yeah,
I don't think ordinary people are willing to pay.
86 grand or whatever it is a year.
And on prepayment meters, which are a rip-off anyway.
It's the fact that the poorest people, even if you don't pay for your energy bill, by direct debits, you get I think a 10% discount or something for that. But the poorest people who don't have a certain income and do that, they lose out. But also, if you get prepayment meter, you are paying more for your energy than say I am. That's wrong. Plus the standing charges that everyone's bill. I think 300 quid of your bill a year is just to be connected to the electricity and the gas. And it doesn't, how much you use after that it goes up. But if you are someone who is on low income and you're rarely, you haven't got a load of big gadgets and you rarely put the heating on because you can't afford it, that's a much bigger percentage of your bill than, say, me, who has the heating on 24 hours a day.
No, and it's the fact that this hasn't been sort of accounted for. Because I think there's a lot of people in politics and the media who have thought, because we got over that point of the really sky-high energy prices that we saw just as Liz Truss was
all over.
That it's all kind of over. It's still so much higher than it was even a couple of years ago. People are still struggling to adjust to it. It is a much higher proportion of their household budget, and also the fact that they are subject to these even more punitive costs as a consequence of being
and they've used up any spare money they had, if they had any in the first place. But also, it's basically double what it was. If you're on low income, your energy bills, your outgoings on things like your rent, again, rents have also gone up, and everything you're buying in the shops is going up. So everything that people are spending money on, that are the vital things, they have all gone up. No, there isn't space in huge percentage of the population's incomes for the doubling of your energy bill. There just isn't space. But a lot of these people, they'll have children. There'll be elderly people who've got, disabilities, who can't walk, right, go for a brisk walk, and put another jumper on. I sit, 2 jumpers and a fleece with a cuddly blanket over me. I still need the heating on. And I'm able-bodied. I know it doesn't look like it sometimes, but I do find it extraordinary. And again, this has been a deliberate policy to make our energy more expensive. What I find fascinating is, look at the American politics. Let's talk about that, because it does link in. Massive snow drifts. What we had, minus 30 with wind chill in the Iowa caucuses last week, and with the New Hampshire primary tonight, with Donald Trump facing off against the final candidate standing against him, Nikki Haley. But one of the biggest issues for voters in America right now is the price of gas. What they mean is the price of filling up their cars, because everyone relies on their cars. That's how you get about in America. If they saw our prices at the pumps, if they saw what it costs for us to heat our homes, or even to buy food, actually, or the cost of property, they would faint with horror.
Take up arms or something. But
they do that anyway.
But no, it's completely out of control. And like I say, I think there's been a tendency of people who are better cushioned from the effects of these things, that it's all sort of gone away. And also everything's downstream of energy, not your rent, of course, and not things like that. But if you think about just the prices in the shops, if you think about various service, manufacturing, all sorts of different things.
They're paying those energy costs.
And they're passing that on to the consumers as well. So it's just one of those things where you would hope that the crisis that we've been in for quite some time now, that we're kind of in the long tail of now, we hope, would have been enough to rattle the political class out of some of these green delusions. The best we've got is Rishi Sunak pushing back the targets ever so slightly.
And I was so hopeful and gave him lots of encouragement on this. I remember messaging some of his staff saying, finally, you get it, you get it. I don't think anyone who's paid any attention could not get it. We got rid of Chris Skidmore, the climate czar, net zero czar. I mean, genuinely, good riddance to him leaving government. I mean, Jane, the man's a danger to people in terms of... No, when people talk about, oh, climate change, people are going to die because of the heat. No, people die because of cold. And when you're pushing higher energy policies and prepayment meters and smart meters, where basically it means that they can hike the... It's not that they can give you lower priced energy. They're going to hike the energy costs. That's the point of... Do not have a smart meter. That's the point of them, so they can control the energy you use. I don't want anyone controlling the sodding energy I use. That's up to me. But everybody should be able to afford to have... not having a temperature on, 28 degrees and having, 15-hour showers. I mean, but everybody should be able to afford, in a first world country, to be able to heat their home when it's cold and to have hot water and to put electricity on, gas on, to cook their food. This is basic stuff.
And to be lectured on this by these Tory Greens. Chris Skidmore has got two £80,000 a year climate consultancies. That
I'm so shocked to hear that.
You've got people like Zach Goldsmith, who is someone who, shall we say, has never struggled with money.
The son of a billionaire. He got his first job. But he worked for an eco magazine. Yeah, owned by his equally rich uncle. I mean, I don't know about you. I didn't have a rich uncle giving me my first job.
These are the people telling working class Brits you've got to put up with less because of the
planet. Where have they recently jetted off to as well? I mean, that's the thing, because it was always somewhere.
No, exactly. They're not just kind of staying in their yurt in the middle of the countryside. These people live perfectly carbon guzzling lives.
And I'm happy for them to do so. That's what we all should be able to do. But yeah, I don't. I mean, it's just so frustrating, and this is the reality. But again, we've got to face up to reality. I really, really, really need one of the major parties to get to grips with the fact that this is an insane policy. As soon as people are told the facts on net zero, as soon as people realise what it actually means in terms of the actual policies, the restrictions on their lives, and people are getting a bit of a clue with the 15-minute cities, the ULEZ, these extra charges and the talk of, how much extra tax you'd have to pay and basically, the rationing of energy use, which always works out OK for the rich. As soon as people realise that, the control on their freedom, you're not going to be able to eat so much meat, we're going to have to put the price of that up. But people will go, I don't bloody think so. But they haven't, they're not being told the reality, because everyone was told. We had Ralph Schulhammer on the show yesterday, who's fantastic on this stuff. Everyone was told we're going to get cleaner energy, and we're going to save the planet. No evidence for that. And we're going to be better off. No evidence for either. On the contrary, we're going to be poorer.
It's presented as win-win, but it's turned out to be a lose-lose. Because even if you bought the very dubious claims that are made about green energy and its impact on the future of the planet and so on,
don't you care about your grandchildren, Tom? Don't you care?
Who doesn't? The point is, though, is the fact that we're now impoverishing ourselves. Meanwhile, CO2 on a global level is because of China, because of Russia, because of these other countries.
Or just because CO2 goes up anyway.
Just it's become a lose-lose for people, and they're starting to realise that as well. You're starting to see.
I hope so. But we need a viable political party making that point. I know certainly, Reform UK are making that point, very anti-net zero. Until the Tories get to grips on that one, they're not on the side, or Labour certainly are not on the side of the average working person in this country.